What if everything you built, everything that defined you, suddenly fell away? Would you break or rise? Hi, I'm Abby, and welcome to Narrated by Abby, where we tell stories of reinvention, resilience, and the quiet strength within us all. If you're someone who believes the next chapter might just be the truest one, subscribe now, because these are the stories that stay with you. Today's journey is about Miss Imani Reed, a woman who had it all until she didn't, and how, in a warm London kitchen, with flour on her hands and purpose in her heart, she discovered the life she'd almost forgotten to dream. Imani Reed was 52 when the floor dropped out from under her. For 3 decades she had ruled her corner of the financial world with the kind of calm fire that turned heads and closed billion-pound deals. A black woman in a sea of pinstripe suits and fragile egos, she had carved her space with intellect, tenacity, and a steel-spined grace that left no room for apology. Her office sat on the 30th floor of a gleaming tower in the city of London. Glass walls, a view that stretched across the skyline, a private espresso machine that had more settings than a Formula One car. And yet, she never paused long enough to enjoy any of it. Her life was motion. Meetings, deadlines, red-eye flights, whispered calls to nieces she hadn't seen in too long. A well-managed loneliness. A beautifully dressed blur. Until the day everything stopped. It began with a polite, unexpected meeting request from the CEO. The tone was cordial. The wording, careful. But Imani, whose instinct had built empires, knew the truth before she stepped into the room. Mr. Sterling didn't meet her eyes at first. The words came quickly. Strategic shift, leaner structure, not personal. But it was personal. 30 years of building, sacrificed to a spreadsheet. She nodded, thanked him, walked out. And just like that, the chapter closed. No scandal, no drama, just silence. In the days that followed, Imani didn't cry. She packed her office slowly, filed away her awards, deleted contacts she knew would never call again. And then she went home, to her Kensington townhouse, once a symbol of her triumph, now just an echo chamber of every step she no longer had to take. Her phone stopped buzzing, her inbox stopped demanding. Time, once her rarest resource, was now abundant, unstructured, unforgiving. She wandered the streets of London like a ghost in her own city. The bakeries, the bookstores, the gardens, all of it moved on without her. She tried to fill the silence. She read, she walked, she reorganized her bookshelves by author, then by color, then back again. She scrolled job listings, but her stomach turned at the idea of returning. The stillness should have felt like rest. But instead, it felt like mourning. Not just for the job, but for the version of herself she had spent decades becoming. Then, one rainy Tuesday morning, something unexpected happened. She wandered into her kitchen, a room she'd rarely stepped into except to heat soup or pour wine. But that day, her hands reached for flour, and butter, and sugar. No plan, no recipe. Just a whisper of memory from a childhood in Hackney, standing beside her grandmother, whose pound cakes could silence a room. The first loaf was messy, too dense, undercooked in the center, burned on the edges, but the smell filled her home with something it hadn't known in years, comfort. So she tried again, and again. Each morning brought a new attempt. Scones spiced with cardamom, lemon drizzle cakes, shortbread that melted on the tongue. She didn't bake for profit. She baked for presence. It was meditation. It was memory. It was medicine. She began sharing her bakes. A neighbor recovering from surgery. Her postman, who always said good morning. The single mom down the road who could barely afford biscuits for her little ones. Each reaction lit something in her. Miss Imani, that cake is healing. You should sell these. Please tell me you're opening a shop. She laughed at first, but the idea grew roots. The moment of clarity came over a stubborn sourdough starter. She hovered by the oven, watching the dough rise, slow, alive, unpredictable. It reminded her of those financial models she once built, balancing risk and yield, growth and patience. But this time, the reward was something she could taste, something that nourished. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hollow. She felt hungry. Hungry to create, to serve, to rebuild, something that was hers. The shop was a risk. She drained her savings, took out a modest loan, scouted storefronts with ivy in the windows and ghosts in the walls. She found a small space in a lively, diverse neighborhood, Brixton, where the rhythm of community still pulsed loud and proud. She named it Reed and Crumb, painted it herself, sanded the floor, handwrote every menu. It was never about perfection. It was about care. The first morning she opened the doors, she wore a soft linen apron. No heels, no power suit, just the scent of warm brioche and strong espresso. The line formed slowly, then quickly, then every day. People came for her pear tartlets, her sour cherry loaf, her chocolate espresso cake that tasted like a memory wrapped in velvet. But mostly, they came for her. Imani Reed had not disappeared when she left the 30th floor. She had arrived. Her life now was no less demanding. Early mornings, late nights, flour in her hair. But there was joy in the sweat, peace in the repetition, a quiet pride in watching someone take a bite and close their eyes just for a second to feel it. She hadn't lost herself. She had returned to her center. If this story stirred something in you, if you're wondering what might be waiting when the old life ends, you're not alone. Subscribe to Narrated by Abi for more real stories of loss, rediscovery, and the wild sweetness of starting again. Like this video. Share it with someone who's quietly craving change. And tell us in the comments, what have you been afraid to begin? Because sometimes the next chapter is already rising.